Hello, beautiful. Welcome to the SheSacral podcast. I'm your host, Lindsay Christian. If you are ready to shift your body out of survival and into a space of thriving as a woman, then you've come to the right place. Let's go ahead and get started with today's episode. Hello, Sacral Beauties. Welcome to the SheSacral podcast, where we focus on burnout recovery for women through the power of sacred pleasure. Today, we are starting off a brand new series, and we're focusing on the Sacral Codes. So if you're familiar with the sacral chakra, you'll know that it has everything to do with pleasure, with connection, with emotion, with flow, with creativity. But when I think of the sacral chakra, a lot of times it just kind of gets balled up into the chakra system, and it's like, oh yeah, orange for sacral. Okay, move on to the next thing. And we don't really take the time to really do a deep dive into the chakra. Luckily, this podcast is all about it, so you'll get plenty of information here. But there are different codes or viewpoints to what really makes the sacral chakra what it is. And I think it's so important that we start with this series just because it's going to really set the tone for the rest of this entire podcast. Pretty much every code that I'm going to talk about in this series will create all the future themes to come for this podcast. So I hope that you're excited and you're ready. And so in this first episode of the Sacral Codes, we begin where everything begins, and that is with the truth that your body, your feelings, and your pleasure are sacred. So we're going to explore a little bit more about what that word sacral actually means and how remembering your sacredness reawakens your emotional flow, your voice, your energy, you, and your desires. So let's dive in and talk about what the word sacral means. Where does it come from? So sacral comes from the Latin root word sacere, which means holy or set apart or consecrated. In other words, sacred, right? What is sacred? The sacrum bone, which is where the sacral chakra is located, is seen as the seat of the soul, the place of where life is created, the energy of where we are all created from, which is in a very sacred space. And the sacral center is not just this anatomical space, it's an emotional birthplace of feeling alive, passion, of sensuality, of creativity, and connection. And so to be sacral is to be sacred. And sacred doesn't have to mean that it's super serious or super religious, but it truly means to be alive with meaning, to be present with purpose. So when you really think about that, how are you going about your day? Do you have any sacred moments throughout your day that helps you feel like your life is meaningful? What's the one thing in your day that's super sacred to you? Is it eating? Is it sleeping? Is it the way that you connect with others? Is it your spiritual practices? What is sacred to you? And I feel and believe that sacredness is the one thing that I feel is starting to become less and less and less in this digital age and where we are right now. Everyone's posting everything, everyone's oversharing everything. And the things that would normally be considered sacred or more private or protected are now exploited. Even just your religion or your beliefs nowadays. One of the things that we've held as something sacred for so long is now a t-shirt or it's a checkbox or it's a label that we wear as a status symbol. So there's just so much that has been lost in our sense of sacredness. And I think that that's not everywhere, right? I see a lot of other cultures and a lot of other countries where sacredness is still very much alive. And when you have more of that sacred energy in your life and your habits and the things that you do, you feel more of yourself. You feel more connected to yourself. The less sacred your day becomes, the less sacred moments and experiences that you're enjoying become less important to you, you start to become more and more disconnected. And that is the first step into walking right into burnout. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. But when something is sacred, you treat it with reverence. And so I want to ask you, what would change if you treated your emotions, your desires, your needs, the things that you want with sacred care? And that requires for us to slow down a little bit, right? Everything nowadays is so fast and so busy that we really have to take time out to incorporate more of that sacred energy throughout our day. And so what happens when that sacredness is forgotten? Often it gets replaced with obligation or shame or utility. It becomes, oh, this is something I have to do, right? The moment that you start feeling like, oh, I gotta do this, it's no longer sacred to you. Have you ever done something that you truly enjoyed? You had so much fulfillment from it, but then it started to have more demands on it, right? Let's say you enjoy cooking. This is one of the things you really enjoy doing. You love playing some music. You love tasting the food while you're cooking it. You love getting creative. Maybe you have someone that you share that meal with and they're like, oh, that was so good. Can you make that again tomorrow? Can you make that again the next day? Can you cook for me another day? And it just starts to become a demand. And so then the pressure starts to become added. The thing that you enjoyed, the thing that you felt so much pleasure from becomes less sacred to you. So that almost brings it back full circle that the things that we hold sacred, we also enjoy. We don't hold things sacred to us that we don't like, right? Things that we don't like doing, we don't say that that's sacred. So that's a sign that our sacredness is starting to become forgotten. Your emotions can start to be seen as inconvenient. Pleasure starts to be seen as indulgent. Creativity starts to be seen as impractical. And so these things that are so important to us as a human being, as healing, and as women, are so critical that when we strip it away because we cannot find the importance in it, maybe it's like, oh no, you gotta work, you gotta get things done, work. But taking time for pleasure and creativity and your emotions are really sacred and they're really special and they're really important to you. They're intangible and they're not for others, right? That's the beauty of it, is that there's so many other areas of our lives, of how we do things that maybe we do for other people, but this area of yourself is literally something that is just for you. It's a big reflection of the relationship you have within yourself as well. And so when we start to forget what is sacred, or we start to have less sacred moments throughout our day, this begins to lead us into chronic self-abandonment. All of a sudden, I don't have time to feel that today. That's not that important. Or, you know what, I don't really deserve this. That's another inner dialogue that we can start repeating because we start conditioning our minds to believe that we must work in order to receive. And so if you start to feel feelings of unworthy of joy, feeling disconnected from any of your personal rituals or creativity, difficulty trusting your intuitive or emotional guidance, then this is a sign that something that is considered to be sacred to you has been forgotten. So when you forget your sacredness, you forget your softness, and that's when burnout begins. And that's what happened to me. That is absolutely what happened to me. I mean, I treated my Sundays as very sacred days. These are my days that I pamper myself, that I set intentions for the week, that I clean and I organize and I, really set the tone. But when I started to take on more demands than I really could handle and adding more responsibilities and having less space and time for myself, that started to become less and less and less. And so it truly is so important that even if it's just the simplest things, they don't have to be religious acts. The moment that you start to see something as an obligation, know right off the bat that it is not considered to be sacred to you. That means that it does not have the intention to you that aligns with where you're wanting to go or how you're wanting to feel. And if going to church or connecting with God or a higher power or whatever it is that you connect with, if that is something that is considered to be sacred to you, then absolutely, it is so unique to everyone, right? But we want to be able to apply that feeling of sacredness to our everyday lives as well. And just having some of those moments that are just for you, even if it's just taking a moment to sip some tea. If it's sacred and it's intentional, that's where we start to piece ourselves back together again. The next thing to remember about sacredness is that sacredness is an emotional frequency. It is not just an idea, right? It's not a concept. It's a state, right? It's an emotional state. It's a vibration. And sometimes I know when people hear vibration, it's like, oh my gosh, I'm so tired of hearing about vibration. And just to set a disclaimer, this is not going to be one of those like, get in the frequency, like podcasts. I just believe that everything about us as human beings, as women, are always intentional. So whenever we're trying to like force ourselves out of an emotion to get something, I mean, we can't outsmart frequency or our vibration, right? Everything is always honest. When we are in this state of sacredness, we start to open ourselves up to receive more intentional and meaningful experiences in our lives. Sacredness feels slow, it feels intentional, it feels honest. It takes the time to ask you, what would honor me right now? How am I honoring myself in this moment? It allows for you to respond to emotion with presence, not pressure. And so when you remember your sacredness, you stop rushing your feelings or trying to fix everything, and you slow down and you start listening. You start receiving that guidance that's been trying to get to you because you're slowing down for a moment. And so let's just take a pause and just set an intention for how you want the rest of this day to go. And just take a deep breath in and release. And know that the moment you set those intentions, the process then begins for you to continue to live your life in a sacred way that aligns with that intention. So how can we begin to reclaim the sacredness in our daily lives? I want to just make a note that this doesn't require for you to have any kind of special ceremonies. You don't have to like light any incense or candles or like burn all your sage to get this vibe going, unless you want to. But all you really need is just intention, just as we stated that intention earlier today. So when you're drinking your water, you're drinking it with reverence. You're drinking it with the intention to hydrate yourself. When you feel something big, take a moment to breathe slowly. When you have your needs, speak your needs like prayers, clearly and kindly. Are you speaking your needs in a frantic way? Is it in a way that feels desperate? Is it in a way that feels chaotic? Is it in a way that feels like no one is seeing me, no one is hearing me, right? But are we taking the time to really state our needs in a way that feels calm and centered? You can also focus on savoring a sensation, whether it's touch or music or movement, just taking your time to savor the things that feel good to you instead of rushing through it all. Choosing beauty and softness when you feel hard or numb. A lot of times I feel that even art and beauty has really lost its importance. The meaning behind art, the meaning behind beauty. And some might say, well, that's not very functional, right? It's just something that looks nice and I need something to be more functional. Well, beauty is functional. Beauty has the power to shift an emotion. It has the power to remind you that there's good in the world. So what's something that's beautiful to you? A piece of art. Even if it's not necessarily beautiful, maybe it's just something that transforms your feelings in that moment. And I truly believe that it's important to incorporate those things. Now, it doesn't mean that you have to live with a bunch of art everywhere, but there is purpose and meaning in things that are beautiful. And softness is valuable as well. Softness is your reminder that you feel safe. And so taking the time to remind yourself that your emotions are sacred messengers, that your energy deserves devotion, that you're not here to perform, you're here to feel. And I think we get stuck in that trap of performing, putting on a performance, putting on this mask all the time instead of allowing ourselves to just be in that moment. So the moment that you reclaim your sacredness, you start relating to your emotions and energy as holy teachers, not problems to manage. So where have you been treating yourself as useful but not sacred? And how can you return to that energy? What can bring that back to you? All right, well, we covered a lot in this episode in regards to sacredness. And even for myself, I don't think that I ever really focused on this word before taking this new approach to life of sacredness. And when I started to really think about it, I really moved through my day very differently. All of a sudden, I started to change my perspective on when I would see things moving slowly. Before, I was in a space where I would feel so impatient. It's like, oh my gosh, hurry up. Like, can you go? Or why is it taking so long? Hurry up. But once I really started to grasp and understand the power of sacredness, so knowing that if something is moving a little slowly, it's being intentional in that process. So it really has shifted my mindset for me to just slow down and not run around like, a rabbit trying to find its next blade of grass. Like, I have really kind of reconditioned myself to be in the state of sacredness. And I find that life feels way sweeter and I feel way less stressed. And I notice that when I move slower and I am more intentional and I am more sacred in my activities and in the things that I do and in the way that I work, I find that I have less of having to redo something over and over and over again because I'm intentional about what I'm doing. I'm not just doing it because it's got to get done. So that is a little bit more about the first code of the sacral energy, which is to be sacred. So when you hear SheSacral, it has so much meaning, right? She is sacred healing energy, but also she referring to women. And then sacral, sacred. She's sacred. You're sacred, right? You have meaning. You have purpose. You are designed intentionally. And so I absolutely love all of these different codes. I can't wait to share more of them with you. I hope that you're ready to tune into the next code, which is the frozen code. And we're going to talk more about what happens when your sacral energy begins to shut down from emotional overwhelm, and how you can begin to melt yourself back into flow. All right. Well, thank yourself so much for showing up today, and thank you for tuning in to the SheSacral podcast.